That's good. Hello and welcome to our Million Mom Movement Lunch and Learn. This is our monthly Wednesday, third Wednesday of the month gathering, where we dive deep into specific topics that the field specifically is asked for or has requested or really is tapping on us and our teams to discuss more. So my name is Carmela Velarde. I am Blue Diamond with the company Purium, and I'm a proud mama of two. I have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I've been raising these two littles with my husband, Anthony, who's a really big part of my Million Mom Movement journey. I've been with him for 21 years, and he's an impeccable, conscious parent. I really love everything that the Million Mom Movement stands for and is about. I'm one of 5 on the council. And together today with Taz Ferreira, we are going to discuss the topic of ADHD and how nutrition and lifestyle plays a vital role. Taz, I'll pass the mic over to introduce yourself as well.
Thank you so much, Carm. So I'm Taz Ferreira from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and this business and this opportunity has allowed me to have what we all desire, location freedom. So I've recently moved to Miami, Florida, and I've been partnered with Purium. It feels honestly forever. I don't remember life before Purium, but 6 years, and my business actually began with my husband, Leo Bacardi, who was the driving factor in this for me. You know, sometimes when people get it and they don't, so he just got it before I did. So it took me a while, but then when I got it, I went running. And I'm so happy to be here. The Million Mom Movement Council is what drives me. This is my focus. I'm a mom of 2. I have 2 amazing kids who teach me every day how to be a better parent. A 13-year-old, I don't know how that happened, and an 8-year-old. So back to you, Carm.
Awesome. And you are an amazing mother at that. And I'm so proud to be on this council. And really, we all learn from each other. We all learn from community. So that's why we created it. Stephanie Dawn actually had created this wonderful idea of creating this lunch and learn. And here we go, guys. So my direct connection to ADHD as a topic, as an imbalance, is because I had been diagnosed at a very young age with this imbalance. I'm going to continue to call it imbalance, because I don't really, in the holistic background that I do have, ever call it really a disorder. It's a disharmony, but that's why we get to discuss this in a holistic perspective of our lifestyle education. So I'm now 45 in September, and since the age of about 8 years old, I have been told by my teachers, my doctors, that I had symptoms of this disorder or this imbalance where it was hyperactive. And I was prescribed medication on numerous different accounts throughout the different schools that I had attended, and my parents never subscribed to it. And I was really proud of them, actually, because this culture really did prescribe to it. And we're going to go deeper into that societal issue at hand. But what I was so happy about was that I never did go the route of prescription medication, but I did go the route of overstimulating myself, right, by sugars and chemicals through processed foods. They were my addiction. I was so addicted as a child, and it really created disharmony throughout my life. And I can say now that I have, since really delving deeper into nutrition as a mom, reversed my leaky gut symptoms, which was really the gut dysbiosis connected to the hyperactivity and the lack of mental clarity and really the inability to focus. And I started realizing a lot of things. And so this is why we've come today, Taz and I, because we both have a personal connection. Do you want to share yours, Taz?
Absolutely. So my background is in genetics and I do functional medicine today. And I've helped a lot of families, from children to teenagers to adulthood to motherhood. And what I've been noticing as well, so I love to volunteer in my kids' schools. Okay. And you know, when we volunteer in our kids' schools, you know what happens? We get to see what they're eating. And what they're eating, this is what drives me. I know, I see that, right? This is what drives me. And I had the opportunity to see my daughter with her school. She started at grade 4 till high school, right? So I've been following these kids their whole lives. And you know what I noticed? In the past 2 years, more than half. When I say more than half, I'm talking about 70% of her peers are all diagnosed with ADHD. Okay, that is a massive number. And what the school decides to do is to switch out their chairs, have wobbly chairs, introduce fidget spinners. Instead of looking at the root cause issues, we look at ways to help them deal with it, not to be disruptive in class, right? And this for me is not a solution. Let's go look at their lunches. Let's look what they're eating. Let's look at mineral deficiencies, right? And again, I've noticed that my daughter is one of the few kids who does not demonstrate any of these imbalances. So, direct correlation. So this is why today on this call um, we want to bring solutions to you, and we want to bring ideas of what to look for. If you have a child, a teenager, in adulthood, it presents itself in different forms. So we are going to be talking to you about that, and of course solutions and how we can help this imbalance. So let's just get into our slides. Perfect.
Okay, let's get into defining. Let's just quickly define quickly. We've got a lot to cover. So what is ADHD? So it's attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And we at the Million Mom Movement do recognize this as something physiologically connected to gut health, because there's a gut brain connection here. And the neurosynapses, neurotransmissions have a lot to do with what triggers them through our hormonal imbalances, thus like inflammation, systemic inflammation, intestinal immune complex issues that could be happening, poor health, just generally having drugs, toxins, pathogens, infections, stress, food particles. So these are triggers that could lead to hyperactive tendencies.
Absolutely. And let's talk about how to recognize ADHD. Okay. So let's start at 5 years old, right? So this is an age that I hear so many times, that in preschool, that parents would tell me they would wait until they receive a letter from their teacher, right? And what's the letter? It's speech. They have a delayed speech issue comparing to their peers. They're disruptive in class. They're having trouble focusing. But what's most important? Let's not look at the trouble focusing. Let's look at the retention. Bless you, Carm. Let's look at the retention, right?
Okay, so it could present very easily as trouble focusing. Like Taza said, teachers would actually recommend that students hold things that would help stimulate their physical kinesthetic learning, as in fidgeting. That's where the whole craze of fidget spinners came, really, because we were an overstimulated society, and it starts with the kids. And somehow the kids really gravitated towards this because why? Because it helps them focus. Well, what is actually attention deficit hyperactive disorder on a deeper level? Well, it could mean that you have sleeping issues, you have difficulty connecting with others because you have impulse control issues. So like you might blurt out things quickly or be disruptive, loud in volume, difficulty focusing on one task without jumping to three more in your mind. And so, even as I say these things, I'm sure a lot of you can relate or even say, I have this issue. I have a little bit of ADHD. Well, yes. And because this is also something I keep and continue to hear, is that we all could very easily fall under these symptoms, because it's about managing your balance and what goes on physiologically with being able to be present and focused in your physical body. So are you getting enough of what you need? So if you don't have enough sleep, and we're going to go deeper into all of these things, but if you don't have enough rest, are you able to then be intimate with someone, having a direct conversation, be able to respond to them well and on in a timely way, and using the words that come to your mind articulately. No, there's a lot of things that are factors. If you hadn't had enough protein first thing in the morning, also this processes neurotransmitters differently. So there's a lot of things here with restlessness, issues with difficulty staying on task, maybe also depression, right? Because deficiencies also lead to depression. Forgetting to do really important functions like eating on time. People forget that when they're not focused. Having enough of what you need, and maybe even getting to the restroom and eliminating, making that a priority. When people do have ADHD, their mind is scattered. They feel like they're not grounded in the physical body. And this is why we really wanted to show you that there's so much underlying the just trouble focusing as an overall broad term.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many ways, there's so many things that are brought up when using the term ADHD, right? But the one disruptive hurts me the most because what does disruptive mean? Not being quiet, not being able to speak your mind. What does it really mean? So I think we need to look at all aspects. Am I echoey? Do you guys hear me clearly? Yes? Are we at this or are we at for sure?
A little bit echoey, but you're coming in clear.
Okay, so let me know, okay, throughout this, if I'm more echoey, I'll adjust, okay? I want to talk about as well that how many times do we see children at a restaurant with an iPad? It's being introduced to younger and younger children. They all have a tablet, they all have some type of device, some type of stimulant always going. And you know what happens with all of these technologies? It has so many side effects: miscarriages, increased cortisone, increased histamine levels. So that means you become allergic to so many different types of food, your lowered melatonin levels. So that's what we talk about, the quality of sleep. How is your sleep? I think this is one of the most underutilized questions that we have not been asking. We need to start asking our kids younger and younger so they're in tune of what's happening with their body. Not just, did you sleep well? How was the quality of your sleep? Did you wake up in the middle of the night? Because this has a huge impact to your health and your reparative sources. And anemia of the blood, okay, so this has to do with your organs. So melatonin levels is not just sleep, it's about all the organs, and it's a hormone level of everything else. So if your gut microbiome is not producing properly, you have leaky gut, you will have lower serotonin levels, you will have not the right production and imbalance of melatonin levels.
Yes. Yes, and hence the craze also for the blue blockers. They're with children as young as 5 years old. I see them going into kindergarten. Why? Because they're already claiming families' phones and they're scrolling TikTok, or they're, so early. And this an amount of screen time definitely affects their ability to be focused because they're overstimulated. And so what this can present to look like is also autism. So if you look here, we really like this slide because some of the similarities in the blend of what you're seeing with autism, the hypersensitivity, is very similar to hyperactivity. And sensitivity in general is due to the lack of grounding and deficiency syndromes that are happening in the physiological body. So again, it's the minerals, it's the nutrition, it's the amount of sleep, it's the amount of movement, it's the amount of sunlight and fresh air that we're getting. So these are the holistic, tenets of pillars of health. And with autism, we know, as well as with people with ADHD, they thrive with quality nutrition. And we're going to go into that deeper. They also thrive when their senses are being stimulated, like if you guys have ever heard of the learning scale, there's kinesthetic, visual, and auditory. So you could be different types of learners, and then you can take a test. But people typically with ADHD and autism have like a very first level kinesthetic way of learning. So they need to physically learn, but their auditory could be extremely acute too. And that could be almost oversensitized. So executive functioning ability also could be heightened because when one area is lacking, then basically the focus is not there, then two others could be hyper. And so this is where there's an imbalance in this harmony in the system with kinesthetic, visual, and auditory, right? So now the combined type, the inattentive, meaning the ones who are often forget things, lose things, listening, and are quite forgetful, disorganized, could actually be also connected to people who are talking too much. So this could be present as impulsive and hyperactive together combined. So this is like a characterized way of looking at what is presented to somebody who does have ADHD. There are tests that you can take, but I found them always leading to prescription. So honestly, what we do need to look at, if you are a parent and you have had a child who has some of these specific symptoms or things that come up for them, look at, like Taz said, the questioning, what is the quality of sleep that they got? What did they have this morning before they started their day? Did they get enough movement today besides that one recess all day? Did you have them go out in nature and really allow them to play in nature and connect with other things besides a classroom, which is very cubicle-like, right? So if you hyper focus them in one area, they're going to be hyper in another area. Think about it like that. So energetically, we want to think about the holistic model of raising a child or raising ourselves, right, in a balanced state.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say how this perfectly shows the imbalance that can happen, right? Because it's a complete opposite end. And before ever looking towards the medication for this, we urge you to look at the nutrition. Look at the nutrition and start questioning these things before looking, because this could be anyone, any child. I mean, as moms, we can list 5 things that our kids have today, right? So let's look at defining ADHD in society. Well, what does that mean? That means stimulants, right, Carm? Stimulants, prescribed medication. But let's talk about the number one stimulant that our kids are being subjected to each and every day is sugar.
This was my crux, Taz. This is my crux. This is my weak point, and I know a lot of you guys can relate. Come on, this is the legalized drug. And I was arguing with my children about this just the other day. I said, sugar is a drug. Yes, it heightens areas in the brain, the same exact areas as cocaine, as methamphetamines. So let's look at what then, happens when you eat sugar. Well, you like it, you crave it. It becomes addictive because it has those properties that are just, they awaken your senses. They make you become more alert and alive. And what happens? Your blood sugar levels spike. So your dopamine is released. So there's that heightened sense of, that Superman, Superwoman feeling, right? And that really isn't good because a mass insulin is secreted to drop blood sugar levels. So there's right there. That's the pinnacle of what happens. It spikes, but then what happens too? Crashes.
So and you know what else sugar does? Sugar causes micro holes in your gut lining.
Yes.
Right? So if we're looking to have nutrition in our body and our gut is going through leaky gut, we are working against this balance. So now that we're having this false energy, we're having the crashes, we're having a stimulant that's very similar to cocaine, and we are having a compromised microbiome issue.
Yes. Sugar is like kryptonite for ADHD, kryptonite. And we bring up this slide too, because caffeine is also an overused stimulant response to this specific imbalance. Why? Because it's always a stimulant that people are looking for to correct it. Why? Because you can't focus. You can't ground yourself in the physical body. Well, what do? You use sugar, You use caffeine because it makes you more mentally alert. I can't even start my day. How many times have you heard this as a coach, as a health coach with your clients? I can't start my day off with that one cup, just that one cup, and it gets me through the day. And I said, I beg to differ. I think that first thing in the morning, the body needs protein immediately. And this is why we do have a solution of the coffee protein and the matcha protein. Oh my goodness, that is such an amazing, I'm just blown away by the response that our founder formulator, David Sandoval, has created for us, because he knows that this overstimulated nation that we all are, we know the first thing in our bodies needs to be protein. And so yes, for the immediate satisfaction, what happens? You become mentally alert. You get higher metabolism, right? Your metabolism increases. So people sometimes feel like, oh, I'm losing weight, or it's a diuretic. So you're decreasing inflammation by like maybe urinating more. But that's not the healthiest way, right? Because it's acidic first thing in the morning. These stimulants, they increase inflammation, they create inner heat. And if first thing in the morning, that's what you're having to break fast, that is not sustainable.
And you know what I've noticed? That younger and younger kids are having so much coffee. Like in my daughter's grades, you will pass by any Starbucks and you will see any teenager with the largest mocha orange frappuccino, full of sugar, full of caffeine. And they think that this is what they need to get through the day. This is what they need to finish their homework. They're already programming themselves of this is what I need to be successful, right? And you know what happens with this? The urination that you're talking about, the inflammation is actually causing dehydration. It's causing dehydration and it's robbing your body of minerals. And as we will soon learn in ADHD, our bodies desperately need the micronutrients, okay? And when you start allowing your body to work in the optimal way, allowing the nutrients come in, I always say it, the body has no choice but to thrive. But in this case, you are eliminating the micronutrients. You're making holes in your body and you're causing dehydration. You're not getting any cognitive issues to your brain. I mean, it just causes another cascading effect.
Oh, and I wanted to mention too that in our age, that I mean, as far as I know, with our age in the 40s, we were told that children should not have caffeine because it stunts growth. And it's true. It does. It stunts growth. Why? Because if you're overstimulated, you're not deeply sleeping. You're not producing the amount of melatonin required. And then children do need at least 9 to 10 hours sleep. They're building organs, they're building systems in the body that are long term. So if they're overstimulated with these types of stimulants that are normalized, then they're going to have cardiovascular issues. And this is actually an advertisement for the number one on the market stimulant prescription drug, which is Adderall. And so many of us are aware that this has been a problem. Why? Because since 1929, it's been on the market prescribed by doctors as a balance, something that children need. Well, it's also that quote unquote better grades in a pill drug. It's that my kids are going to be more efficient and obedient and do better at school drug, So it's that prescription where parents are like, that sounds like something I need for my kid. And if they get all of it, they start to not act or get as grades that are as good. And so that's an issue because then the parents are like, no, that's not good enough. Right. So we become this industrialized like society where we're so focused on literally like training people to be in a cubicle, training people to be competitive with one another and not enhancing their God-given gifts of whatever balance that they need to find. And everyone's creative. Everyone doesn't have on days where they're full on and they're performing at their best, but that's okay because why? We have hormones. Hormonally, we're supposed to go through ebbs and flows and it's normal. It's natural. So yeah, I had to like wow, when we found this, I was like, Concerta is one, Adderall is another, Ritalin. It's basically just one molecule away from methamphetamines. So we're doing low dosing of methamphetamines to children, even as young as age 5. And when I was young, these were the ones I was prescribed. And we all know what methamphetamines can do to the body. It's super bad for the liver, dehydrating, affects the cardiovascular system. It affects all the hormones. And this type of stimulant that is clearly chemical and just literally one molecule away from methamphetamines, that's Schedule 2 drug, but that's actually a Class A drug. So think about it, guys. Like, this is society's solution right now.
And this is the time during teenagerhood. This is where we see this the most. So what normally happens, what I hear from parents, is that they get a letter sent home. Okay, your child is not performing well in school. Their grades are slipping, right? So that's when parents look to all of these medications. Well, the medications are going to work because what happens? Their grades go up. Oh, well, that's the solution. So they think. So that case, it takes off the responsibility from the parents. They think we've solved the issue. They're performing now, right? Instead of, again, we always say, look at the root causes. What happens now? Kids are overstimulated. They're always on their phones. It's a constant, it's like an extension of their hands. How about video games? They're always on video games and it's happening younger and younger. So their brains are constantly in motion. They don't have time to relax. Their cortisol levels are spiked. Their serotonin levels are low. I mean, everything is not working at its balanced capacity.
Yes. And this is a really great documentary on Netflix. I really recommend everybody take a look at it because we need to get a little bit upset, right, at what's happening in order to maybe sometimes hit a bottom where, okay, I'm going to change my habits. I'm going to change my lifestyle. Like, I need this. Well, if you look at this documentary, you'll see that biohacking, is a really big trend right now. The nootropic industry is booming. People are spending a ton of money on these different supplementations. Limitless, that movie that came out, I think, really encouraging people to imagine being superhuman by just a pill. Neo in the Matrix, literally downloaded Kung Fu in just that it's basically, what is it alluding to? It's alluding to that, like, prescriptions or a pill, or there's a quick fix to open up the cognitive performance abilities that we all as humans could have. And honestly, like, there's more natural ways. A lot of people are also in the natural world microdosing LSD or psilocybin. There are a lot of other ways nootropically that we're awakening the senses to stimulant, but the prescription medication, well, my mission is to help as many people get off of prescription medication and prevent disease with food as medicine. And I just feel really strongly about us seeing the issue at hand, because now we're going to go into solutions, which, this is the most exciting part, Taz.
So now we go into adulthood, right? And the adulthood, you have the overachievers. This can affect overachievers as well because they want to do more. They want to perform more. They want to cram for that test. If you're in university, law school, med school, you just pop that magic pill that helps you retain all of your information for the next day. How many times have you guys heard this before, right? This is happening far too often in our society, and we need to stop it. What if we told you we do have the solution? We do have the solution through food, what you're putting into your mouth each and every single day, and this can actually be sustainable, and this is going to have an amazing long-term effects. So I want to have an amazing testimonial of mine. She's an incredible person, and she's been diagnosed with this since the young age of 5. And this label stayed with her through her teenagerhood, through her adulthood, and through her motherhood. And I want to talk about how dangerous these labels can be, because once you have it, it really affects you on so many levels. So Allison, if you can unmute.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, everything that you shared was so great. And it's all stuff that I wish my parents had known, and that the schools had known, and psychiatrists, because this is my mission, is to make this accessible, this information, and to use my story to inspire. So this is not to say anything against what my parents did. I know they were doing the best they could with what they knew, and they were told, and I remember this very well when I first got on Ritalin, it was like wearing eyeglasses if you have astigmatism. So it's as safe as wearing eyeglasses. It was just going to help me see better. And so I had been diagnosed at 5 years old, and I wasn't put on Ritalin right away. I was a lot of special programs, tutors, special needs classes, but just that label of there's something wrong with me really always stuck with me. Like that lowered it set me apart. It made me feel like there's something wrong with me. And so it lowered my self-esteem. And then finally, it was grade 8, I was forcibly put on Ritalin. And when I say forcibly, I mean I was against it. I did not want to take it. And I had to have the principal of my school sign my agenda every morning and every single lunchtime. And I was on 20 milligrams. I was on 10 in the morning and 10 in the afternoon. And I'm like 100 pounds. So, it's just, when I think about it, I was on this every single day from the very beginning of grade 8. I started actually in grade 7, but really taking it every single day in grade 8, all the way till 3.5 years ago. Like I really believed I needed this to function. I hated it. And okay, so I didn't take it consistently after I didn't have to anymore. I hated the feeling of being on it because it took away certain qualities that I was strong in. Like I was strong in social abilities. I loved people. And that's what made me disruptive, right? And I was very creative. I was out of the box. So I like how, Carmela, you say a lot of box. You're like, they want to fit you in a cube. I was very out of the box, but that wasn't acceptable, right? So it took away my creativity. I remember the feelings of the sweat, just the nervousness, and it created sleeping disorders. So then I was actually prescribed. That led me to, also it led me to acne, I would say too, was another thing. I had very bad acne, and then they prescribed me Accutane instead of looking at the diet. And then they gave me, I was diagnosed throughout all of my teens and 20s, just different diagnoses. So I was anxiety, depression. And then most recently, 5 years ago, before I met Taz, I had been diagnosed as bipolar. And I really think this all stems from a snowball effect of being on this, methamphetamine, really. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's a drug. And I was on a lot of sugar. So my diet was really bad. No one was looking at that. I really wish that had been an angle that was explored. I really wish that, because I was eating, sweets in the morning, lots of junk food throughout the day. What we had accessible at our cafeteria, school cafeteria, was, the chips and the Diet Coke and the chocolate bars. And this was just normalized. So this is my passion. I experienced a huge transformation in the ultimate lifestyle transformation that changed my whole world, because for the first time ever, I felt clear. And I was still on medication when I met Taz. I was on 5 medications. And I really believed I would need these medications for life. But Taz never said you're going to get off your medication. I really like that she didn't say, this is going to get you off your medication. She didn't say any of that. But I just let it meet me where I was at. And within, I don't know how exactly long it took me, but weeks, I reduced my medication and completely got off. And it's been 3.5 years that I have not touched not one medication, not even a Tylenol. I have not touched one pharmaceutical. And yeah, I feel that I'm carrying my grandmother was a psychiatrist and she really wanted to help people. She was one of the people who got me on early onto these drugs, thinking she was helping me. I want to correct her path. And it's my duty to share this message to empower other people they can too. So thank you so much for giving me this platform.
Thank you so much, Allison. Your whole story is so inspiring. It's so inspiring. And then when you say how your mom is a psychologist, and when she gave this to you, it was almost she was giving you a gift.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she really did think she was getting the label too. She thought she was giving me a gift. I remember her saying, "It's so good you have a label," because I didn't have a label when I was struck, because she had it too, or she thought she had it too. And she said, you know, this is so great. You get to carry this label with you forever. No one will ever expect more from you because you have a label.
Wow.
So now I say, let's stop putting labels on our kids and start teaching them how to read labels. We need to teach each other as moms, as teenagers, as children, as young as possible, how to read their labels, because this is what's actually affecting our body. The micronutrients that we need, the gut repair that we need. No one ever tells us until you start experiencing it. And until we start realizing maybe it could be too late. You know what? It's never too late. If you make a decision today to start, to begin, you could transform your life.
And I just want to say, my mother, you know, I want her to hear this, and I want her to know that I don't hold anything against her, that I know that it is, you know, it was through love, and that I'm just evolving now to this stage. So I just want to say that.
You are breaking generations, right? You are changing your future generation now. So that's so incredible. Thank you so much. Your story is so powerful. So let's get into the nutrients, right? The gut health of ADHD.
Well, before we do that, Taz, remember we were going to discuss about community. Now, what's really, really good about what Allison is sharing with us is that, you know, it took somebody with a little bit of confrontation, not somebody who was like saying to her directly that, okay, your whole world will be changed, right? Yes, it definitely will, but no promises, right? We want to just guide people directly to what their needs are in the moment, and really hold their hands. And community support, like we're dealing with what? Overstimulation. So what is overstimulation? It's also addiction. And so what has addiction been proven to be supported by is community. And the whole 12-step program, people need to be accountable with one another. You need to have people who you're commiserating with, right? You're going through it together. And it's challenging, and you can talk about it, and it's okay. It's normalized that we're all struggling through addictions. And I work a lot with addictions. I've been a holistic health counselor for 22 years. I've had a wellness center. And actually my whole first decade of work was with the nightlife industry clients. And it was because my husband was in the nightlife industry. And so I work with so many people who needed this plant medicine, but also plant medicine as well in general, because they needed to disconnect from these chemical addictions that were taking a hold of life, ruining their life. And really, they didn't know how to get around it. So what I heard, Allison, was that, you know, you love your parents. They do the best they can with what knowledge they have. Mine did the same. My parents were not from this culture, but they realized that, you know, maybe diet could be a solution. And so I'm really grateful for that, but not everybody had that. A lot of my friends were prescribed. That's why I was so aware of Adderall and Ritalin and all these things. And actually in colleges, people are underground drug dealing just to perform well on their SATs. And then in industries like Wall Street or the art and music and fashion industries, Adderall is a thing. It's in music songs and lyrics because it's such a common thing right now. It's all about high performance, high driven competition, doing the best, being the best. And it's like, no, it's like, we need to focus not on purpose, but fully on wellness. Because with wellness, you'll find your purpose. And that's what I found, Allison, with watching your story and watching a lot of the leaders' story within our community grow, is that with self-development in the wellness space of your self-healing, your self-awareness, you thrive and you create a community of your own. So that's what we have available for all of you. Focus on your gut health and healing and your wellness journey. And then with that comes your purpose, because then you can help other people to transmute and to really shift theirs, and by being the change. So yes,
Absolutely.
go ahead.
I love that, Carm. And you know, when you're talking about addictive personalities and dealing with addictions, you know what I hear? I hear mineral deficiencies. And the number one mineral that is being deficient at this moment is B6. So if we start to increase our B complex, especially B6, this will actually change the way we approach addictions. Okay, so let's get into gluten. Okay, so we know gluten isn't gluten, right? When we talk about gluten, the bloating, the nausea, the anxiety, the brain fog, we're actually talking about glyphosate, right? And all the toxic chemicals that's actually sprayed on gluten that causes leaky gut, that causes inflammation in our neurotransmitters, which is leaky brain.
Yes. And leaky brain really is those dopamine imbalances, because we need things like protein. We need to avoid triggers that will throw off our hormonal balance, right? So definitely leaky brain. Let's talk about that. Blood sugar imbalance as well. Like I said, sugar is the kryptonite for ADHD. So as soon as you get those spikes, what happens to the brain and gut connection? You're creating the holes. So there are particles of food that are shooting through your body. So you have this autoimmune response, chronic inflammation, systemic inflammation. Gut dysbiosis is also the susceptibility of COVID, right? So again, you're affecting your immune health, which is 80% in the gut, but it's also very much, brain related. Why? Because we're thinking about focus. We're thinking about people being prescribed psychiatric medications. And so where are we bringing your attention? We're bringing your attention that it's from the overall holistic model of gut health, really, because leaky brain, leaky gut, it's really the same thing, guys. And vaccination injury, yes, it's out there. It's said on the slide, not from us directly, but there are a lot of people in this community who have had children with vaccination injury come to us for detoxification from heavy metals and all the things. Chronic stress and poor sleep. We can't emphasize this. Taz did a lot as well with melatonin. Infections. So this, and mold. I have a personal connection with this, and it is insidious, guys. It is not something easily detected. When you have systemic inflammation, maybe from me, it was from a root canal, and I had an infection that went into the blood. And this is not easy to find. Maybe if you have a friend who has had breast implants and that kind of infection through that kind of chemical, again, like this creates ADHD. It creates so many more things as well, but mold, we also can't see it inside our body very easily. You can get tested, but I had mold toxicity exposure and I could not find it in my tests. And so interestingly, I had to take multiple other tests to find it, but I knew that testing the home, testing my environment was an important thing. So there are a lot of causes out there that we need to be aware of that, yes, nutrients definitely play a huge role, but let's also make sure that we're looking at all the environmental factors as well.
Okay, so let me talk about when you're going through leaky brain, what happens is that your serotonin levels are low. Okay, when your serotonin levels are low, you cannot produce melatonin levels, and melatonin levels are found in the pineal gland. So why not start thinking, what is calcifying my pineal gland, right? So you know what calcifies your pineal gland? Fluoride. Fluoride, and fluoride is in our waters, and fluoride is in our toothpaste. So start making the switch from changing our toothpaste to a fluoride free, and our waters are very mineral depleted. So start adding trace minerals that we're going to be talking about shortly to your waters, because we really need all of these minerals. And if our gut is suffering, our brain will be suffering. So leaky brain is basically an inflammation of the brain. We have inflammation of our gut, we have inflammation of our brain. They are interconnected.
Yes.
Now let's look at our favorite part, the foods to avoid and root causes. Okay, so foods to avoid. Without saying, right, guys? Standard American diet. That's the sad diet. We need to start changing the way we're eating every day. So that's fast food. That's all of those food that's through the drive-through that you think that, a burger and fries, maybe it's okay once in a while. I hear that too often. And this once in a while, it's more than once in a while. Okay. So we need to start eliminating this from our life. Refined white flour, refined white sugar. So when we were talking about before of sugars and additive, what we're talking about is white sugar. We're not talking about the healthy sugars, fruits, veggies, these are good for you. We're not talking about coconut sugar, introduce coconut sugar, maple syrup, healthy sugars full of minerals into your life. Look at food preservative, additive, food coloring. So when we were talking about starting to learn how to read your labels, when you go to the store and you buy something, you start buying your groceries, take a look, turn it over, read the labels. If it's labels that you don't know what it is, you could barely pronounce it, and it's made in a lab, and you know when it's made in a lab, put that back, because this all leads to neurological issues. Okay?
And in our Million Mom Movement catalog, please look up, because we're having something coming up that's going to bridge all of the series that we created, which is the Sad to Rad diet. And we love to teach here. We love to give you tips with how to go from this to that. And maybe you have friends who are tapping you on the shoulder all the time. How are you doing it? Tell me, give me your tips, give me your tools. What are some solutions or alternatives? And so that's coming up. So the SAD diet, yes, we recognize it in the Million Mom Movement, but we also are very specific with, okay, we have the lifestyle meal list, we have the flex food list, and we have these tools to teach and educate, but then maybe what are some brands? Because Taz is talking about labels, label reading. And this is also really key to look at what in your labels should we be eliminating and avoiding. So we're talking about root causes now and elimination. So nutritional deficiencies have been shown and related to ADHD. Absolutely. Ever since I was a child, when they diagnosed me, I was told you should look at the diet. And being an athlete, being somebody who was like in literally every sport after school, I realized that I was craving fatty acids and healthy fats and protein nonstop. I couldn't stop eating. Like, this is why I'm so in love with our lifestyles, because it makes nutrients available, convenience available, healthy fats available. Like, everything is so convenient. And for those who literally are like have more sensitive permeability, like I have had since I was a child, I realized that we need help. Like, being that we're in a nation full of nutrients that are grown in soil that is depleted, we need help, and we need solutions like this, and minerals, especially hypersensitivity as lack of being grounded, absorbing the nutrients to help us to ground in our body. So what are we? We're extra sensitive. We're not focused in the center. So yeah, like meditation and yoga and breath work and all these things are super helpful, but nutrition is the key to helping absorb from the outside plant world and the outside world to be brought into to really feel whole.
And another question came up. Okay, if you're not having burgers and fries, what else? Nitrates. Nitrates are something that we need to look at. Hot dog, smoked salmon, all of these things contribute to ADHD. So start looking at your food as a whole. And the mineral deficiency, how you spoke about it, Carm, is perfect. The soil depletion and the absorption issue. So what happens is that we're not able to absorb the minerals that our body desperately needs. And I love this. Understanding which nutritional deficiency exists is critical to understanding the patient's issues with ADHD. So it looks different on different people. So let's look at the root causes of ADHD. Okay, we know we've been talking about it, the digestive imbalance, right? The leaky gut, which is leaky brain, and we have to start looking to repair our microbiome. It's not just introducing a pro and prebiotic, we always recommend using Biomedic to actually help lower the inflammation and to repair your microbiome. So once your microbiome becomes repaired, you know what happens? You start absorbing the nutrients that you're eating.
It makes all the difference because, again, it's leaky brain, leaky gut, and all things health and wellness and wholeness lead to gut health because it's the center of what we bring into our body to be used as fuel. And healing the gut, and I have such an intimate journey with this specifically because after 2018, when we released Biomedic, which we're going to go into now, some of the products and some of the protocols, but Biomedic, wow, what a difference. Distinction of releasing the glyphosate, blocking my ability to absorb nutrition. Wow, what a difference it made for me. And now I just cannot stop discussing this with every mom I know about, especially during the pandemic time. Like if we are blocking our body's ability to absorb nutrition well, then we are not able to protect ourselves from any viruses or anything, the onset of parasites or yeast, excess yeast in the body. And so many gluten intolerances, so many allergies, all of that, gut related, all of that. If you take out glyphosate from the gut microbiome, then you create this open vessel for us to take in the energy that is God-given. It's there for us all. We did discuss already a little bit the mold, the heavy metals, the lead, the mercury. Wow, like these in our environment create major endocrine disruptors. And again, we always talk back with endocrine and hormones because what is that? It's a regulator in our system. We have to keep continuing to discuss hormone balance because we need to ask our children, ask ourselves daily, where are we today with our environmental stressors? Well, let's look in the home. Is anything out of balance? Maybe you can do some tests. There are things that maybe exposure to mercury. Well, eliminate mercury in your teeth. Eliminate too much fish in your diet. We know this because when you're pregnant, you know so much more about detoxification than any other time in your lifetime. And so living in a home with water is just like Todd said about fluoride. And you can even get a filter for your water for specifically fluoride and glyphosate and other things like chlorine. But once you eliminate these things, and these are serious environmental issues, your cognitive function, your ability to be present, it's not disrupted. And it also blocks you from flowing, right? Because if you have a chemical that's blocking your ability to hormonally balance everything that regulates, then you are not going to be in optimal health.
And that's why it's so important that we start addressing these issues when you're pregnant. So we have so much data today that shows how glyphosate toxicity actually passes through the umbilical cord, right? So we are feeding all of these toxic chemicals to our kids. And we have a new study that just got released that we are feeding our kids phthalates as well while we're pregnant. So that is all of the microplastics, everything around us. We need to look at our environment as a whole. So looking at being plastic free, detoxifying glyphosate each and every day, and limiting your environmental toxicity. I love this quote. From Dr. Mark Hyman. The problem was not a Ritalin deficiency or bad parenting, as a lot of parents do think so. The cause of all these problems lay in the dietary and environmental pollutants that throw the 7 underlying systems in our body out of balance. This is why we like saying that ADHD is an imbalance, because it throws our whole system out of balance. And our bodies are desperately seeking to be in homeostasis, and that is the balance of our body. So now we're going to talk about the ultimate solution, foods that help ADHD. So one of our favorite things, Carm, I know you love this one.
Well, we all know that with protein-rich foods make the body make neurotransmitters, the chemicals that are released by the brain to communicate with one another. And protein also prevents surges in blood sugar, which increases hyperactivity and hypersensitivity. So when I had first started Purium, I'll never forget my direct upline. She was bipolar, and she had two sisters who were diagnosed bipolar on medication for decades. And as soon as they tried the Super Amino 23, they realized that they could get off of their medication. And that was stunning to me, because it was really a clear indication of deficiencies of protein. And what happens again with protein rich food, it builds the neurotransmissions that we deeply need first thing in the morning. So coffee first thing in the morning, not so much, So this is something that we all need to like really look at. What are we fueling ourselves with daily? And is it causing the lack of focus, or helping us to become more stationary in our body and really grounded?
Absolutely. And the minerals, our body needs all of the minerals. So we're talking about micro minerals. So I love introducing the green spectrum. So this is one of my favorites. This is all the C veggies. You have your full amount of folates, iodine, the C's, the A's, the E's, your biofruit. This is the most bioavailable food that you can nourish your body. And it's super simple, which helps all of our lives.
Simple and delicious.
Right? Absolutely.
So the whole grains and fiber, well, our Power Shake, hands down, is something that is our number one product in our whole line, I would say, and really is highly addictive in the best possible way of addiction. And I remember many of my clients would say, I just feel immediately different when I don't have Power Shake anymore. When I run out, I literally feel like, oh my, what do I do to supplement myself if I don't have it anymore and I'm waiting for my next order? Well, because the first ingredients are actually complex carbs. So think about it, our bodies actually require this. This complex carbs are positive, especially if they're grown in mineral rich soil with zinc. Zinc is so crucial, you guys, specifically for neurotransmission, dopamine, and also iron. So also very, very important. And 84% of children with ADHD were found to have low iron levels, which is very important to look at. And magnesium, as you had said, also neurotransmitters, attention and concentration. It has a calming effect on the brain, just like these fatty acids.
And I love how the Power Shake has over 30% of iron. So that's amazing. And the omega-3 fatty acids are what you need for your brain. It helps with your serotonin, your dopamine, your basic cell function, and cardiovascular health. So what I like to introduce into my life for omega-3 fatty acids is flaxseed, borage oil, and black seed oil. And the dopamine level. So when the body's levels are low, you become tired, irritable, lethargic, and you crave food that your body does not need. So when you start introducing it to an alkalizing green lifestyle with the biomedic, with everything that we're talking about, now it's being replenished. It's being replenished by micro minerals, micronutrients. Okay, and now let's talk about those micro minerals. Okay, zinc, I love zinc, and the proper form is what matters, the form and the source. So our zinc is the only zinc that is all food. Okay, and why I love the zinc is that it's paired with vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin E. Okay, so we need them, all of these cofactors, to work together. And vitamin D, it helps improve cognitive function. Magnesium, okay, this is something we need to introduce to our daily life each and every day. And how I like to recommend magnesium is in trace minerals. And a trace minerals is an ionic element. So this is all of your trace minerals in one, from your selenium to all of them. There's an array of all of them. And together, that's it. They work together. Okay, and iron, we spoke about the Power Shake, how you have 30% of the iron. So I know we're running out of time, so we're just trying to wrap this up. So these are our main solutions. The super aminos, which Carm spoke about, which is the protein, tropic oil, this helps brain function. In focus, well, the name says it all. It helps you focus. Our CBD is one of my favorite CBD oil. It contains no THC. The ionic elements has all of your trace minerals, and this works as a package and it works as a lifestyle change. Yes. Okay.
And remember, all of this is from a whole food source, not isolated nutrition, which by nature does not absorb as well. So we have the most minimally processed, not minimally denatured whole food supplementation. Really, it's supplementation is your food. So you're eating your food, you're drinking your meals too, but you're also taking the Super Amino 23, which is a vegan pre-digested protein tablet. And I mean, I literally have them as candy for my children because all of us need the amount of protein. So all of this is such a pure whole food source from organic farms that our company has been partnered with for almost 30 years. So the source is so rich with integrity and relationships direct to the farmers. So Amy Venner and David Sandoval are impeccable founders, and they really are always going to be mom and pop. We're not going to be, publicly traded, which I love. They have direct relationships and they don't have anyone else involved. It's just direct to the farmers. So you can feel really good that the soil and the farming practices are pristine and they're transparent.
I love how you talk about the transparency, because this is what really brought me on to this mission and this movement. So just to summarize all of this, the Power Shake, this is all of your micro minerals. The Biomedic, this is what's repairing your microbiome. The Apothecary, this is what's helping regulate your melatonin levels naturally. The Super Cleanser is going to eliminate those sugar craving, those parasites that are robbing your body of minerals. The super aminos, the pure vegan protein, the zincate, all the micronutrients that you need, the ionic elements, the trace mineral, and the green spectrum, which is all your alkalizing greens. And you know what I love on top of all of this? No plastics.
Mm-hmm.
No plastic. Yeah. This is something we are very much, it's part of our mission and who we are. So I know whoever invited you to the call today has a gift card code for you. Reach out to them and they will help guide you throughout this process to help you and your family change and up level your lifestyle. Because you know what happens when we start putting food, healthy, organic superfoods into our bodies has no choice but to thrive. So wouldn't you allow it to thrive?
Absolutely. Vote with your dollars for companies that are holding really these important principles of getting these nutrients into your homes. So we at the Million Mom Movement, thank you. We will be back every third Wednesday of the month for our Lunch and Learn. And we look forward to seeing you every Friday for our Fierce Friday. Thank you so much, community and Million Mom Movement family.
Thank you so much, everyone.